Hey guys, so this is gonna be opening 041. The 41st opening that I'd like to share with you today is the swallow opening. So swallow, not really referring to the action, but rather the bird, the animal. Um, so yeah, many of these openings are actually named after animals, perhaps for how it's being shaped. So I'll just run through the sequence being an extension of the gang lion opening or the ganglion opening. So let's go ahead with the sequence f5, d6, c4, g5, and then of course c6 being the recommended one, basically kickstarts the swallow opening. So probably one of the reason why it's called the swallow is because usually for white, when you play this opening, you tend to sort of spread out the shape in terms of the top and the bottom over here, and with this extension towards the G5 disc, it almost seems like perhaps like a bird spreading its wings. So the benefits of playing as black to actually play the C6 variation is that it forms a very compact shape. So I think most of the moves probably, even though they are counterintuitive, they are probably slightly relatively more intuitive for black compared to white, perhaps. It limits options for white. Probably not for immediately, but the typical options that white play over here, I think, based on my online experience, is that I think c5 is probably one of the most popular options, and then followed by b6, and then of course c3, even though it's a +0, does not seem to be seen that often when a player actually chooses to play g5 and vary it. Usually I see a lot of b6 or c5 follow up. So I think c3 is also one to take note of. And of course, d3 is also a viable option. I almost don't really see anyone playing the e3 variation, so that's not that common. But basically, for black playing c6, I think is relatively more common than the c otter opening, perhaps. And I think so over here, when I say it, the benefits of this opening of playing c6, it limits options for white, is more towards the deeper lines. But of course, the cons over here is that there are more playable options for white right earlier on. So over here, probably all five are still within the -4 this range. But in terms of the further play out for white in the mid game or towards the end game, I think the options are more limited actually. So yeah, for black you can actually try to control the game towards the mid game, probably slightly better than the opening. So the bad thing is that you really have to prepare a lot more lines at the opening part of it. So let's just probably play out one sequence. So the earlier part where I said that there is a sequence that actually results in probably like the shape forming of a bird is that if white plays d3 and black goes for the best move over here to e6, and let's say white chooses to go to d7, for example, which is still probably relatively playable, I guess. You can see many options are relatively playable for white. So this almost forms like a probably the head being here and the wings over here. It almost looks like a plane or a bird, however you like to look at it. And yep, so basically another option is for white to jump into c5, which is the most common one. For black, you definitely still have quite a number of playable options. You have four choices actually, so you can choose whichever you like to vary it. I think the most common one I actually see is the d7 move being a centralized cutback move and controlling this mini diagonal over here. So I think this sequence is probably one of the most common sequences for the swallow opening, the follow-up. And of course, that's assuming that white does not play this particular move to b6. So I think for black, I would actually recommend advanced players and above to actually pick up this opening and go ahead and try out to specialize. So probably one of the disadvantage is that in order to specialize in this opening, you actually need white to actually play out this g5 sequence, and you also need to play that cat variation. So that's usually not too often that will happen, I guess. because g5 itself is not a very popular move, but I think it's still worthwhile noting, perhaps. So on that note, yep, I'll end off this video and look forward to seeing you in the next one.